Let's try and do a bit of deconstruction of the speech. I mean, there were obviously some words and phrases which stood out, but I think what's more interesting is what wasn't there. There was very little mention of the borders issue. He said towards the end that he's not making any. This statement has nothing to do with the final boundaries, but he didn't say anything about how those boundaries where they should be. So that's basically him ditching the 1967 lines policy. He didn't mention the settlements even once. So once again, another major plank of any Western policy regarding Israel-Palestine has been has disappeared from what is now the U.S. policy on the conflict. He didn't mention the issues of obviously of Palestinian refugees, and there was no talk of a timetable. Usually, U.S. presidents very hopefully, perhaps over hopefully, talked about seeing a resolution to the conflict in a year, in 2 years, as a window of opportunity. Trump doesn't seem in a hurry. He wants to solve this. He talks about this new approach. That's something which he began with. This is a new approach. No timetable, no roadmap, no actual plan. There may be a plan in a few months. Obviously, we're hearing a lot about it. But all these major things weren't there. I mean, what stood out to you from the speech?
This is where it felt like it was written by an Israeli spokesperson, talking about not just this is the land, this is the city of three great religions, it's also the seat of government for this flourishing, flowering Israeli democracy. And no mention whatsoever about Palestinian claims to the city, Palestinians' history in the city, Muslim attachment to the city. That was completely missing. And also his very Trumpian way of patting himself on the back, that he is the first president to take action. He is the first president to do anything about this.
What really struck me was that when he did make some kind of oblique reference to Muslim or Palestinian connection, it was always kind of an afterthought, or the very last. He spoke about Jews at the Western Wall, Christians at the churches, and Muslims in the mosques. So Muslims came third after Jews and Christians. This is obviously very clearly what part of what the speech was conveying, that as far as Trump is concerned, Jerusalem is Israel's capital, and the Palestinians have some very unclear and undefined relationship, which he wouldn't even deign to mention in words.
This maybe shows a disconnect between the right-wing Jewish establishment in America and what's happening in Israel. I mean, now it seems like they're more Catholic than the Pope. They're more right-wing than even this very, very right-wing government. And all of these things that sort of feels that they're in the States, they're great for applause lines at AIPAC, they're great for fundraising for money, but on the ground, what is it going to look like? Who's going to pay the price? And today, both of us, we were wandering around the old city in Jerusalem, talking to Palestinians, and the sense that I got from Palestinians was, they feel betrayed, right? They feel betrayed by Washington. They feel betrayed by the world. They feel betrayed by the Arab world. They don't know where this leaves them. But as you mentioned, it's very interesting to see that he's trying to decouple Jerusalem and the final status. He's trying to say we can have still a peace process. The Palestinians we spoke to today said this is just one more nail in the very, very nailed-up coffin of the peace process.
And I think the main accomplishment, as far as Netanyahu is concerned, from this speech is that Trump has said we can detach the issue of Jerusalem from the peace process, which is a concept that no one would have ever imagined in hearing from a U.S. president or from any Western world leader